Hey guys, welcome back. Pat with NorCal Strength Studio. Today we have John Hart, former Mr. America 2013, works out of Foothill Gym in Monrovia, California. Welcome, John. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks, Pat. It's great to be back.
Right on. Well, today's topic is going to be about all this outrageous claim of Mike Mentzer consolidated training, your personal workout, if you're okay with that.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, here we go, John. So, hey, by the way, your INBF this year, how did it turn out?
Our show, the INBF LA, has been very successful.
Right.
We doubled the number of athletes in the show, and this upcoming year, we're anticipating actually, well over 125 athletes. It should be pretty big. In Southern California, a natural show that big is pretty rare. So for whatever reason, I mean, you could do a study on it, I guess. I don't know, but I'm going with we have pretty much one of the biggest, and hopefully, the input from the athletes is that we have one of the most well-run shows,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's what we really try to do is for the athlete's sake.
Well, last year you were wearing shorts and sweatshirt. This year you're wearing a full suit, stepping it up into the world, huh? Don't forget us little people.
Well, the idea, Pat, last year was that I had the suit ready, and I thought that I would have time to go back, get cleaned up, get myself ready to roll, and then, we would have, a great time at the night show. But, man, things started flying, and my expected 2-hour break turned into about 2.5 minutes. So I never changed all day long. So I was in one,
were.
hot, sweaty mess by the end of that day, man. T-shirt, shorts. Yeah, I mean, I looked like I just stepped out of the gym. It was embarrassing. But you're right. This past year, I busted out with the suit, and that's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it. If you're running the thing, you should look like you're running the thing, and that's what I intend. And plus, you don't see many bodybuilders fully wearing a suit. I have my stuff tailored to me, and I'm not the hugest guy in the world, but you still have to have things fitted and tailored, and I just think it represents well. So over time, I think more and more people notice, what I mean, that you're at least fit in a suit and that it fits you.
Okay, our last conversation, you said that you guys are doing something a little different to this next year's INBF. Can you give us are you allowed to talk about it now?
We have we've been pushing to have a bikini pro show associated with our show, and we it looks like we have that. And then also the format of our show. Instead of doing the traditional, straight through prejudging, everybody does prejudging, right? Division by division by division by division, and then boom, prejudging's over, and we take a nice long break, or hopefully a long break, and then come back for the night show. Instead of doing that, we're borrowing we're borrowing an idea from a friend of mine, and we're going to, take a chance, on doing things a little bit more efficiently, and for the sake of the athletes, for the sake of the coaches, for the sake of the spectators, for the sake of even the sponsors, and that is, we're going to run each division straight through.
Oh, nice.
Prejudging and routines and finals, before moving on to the next one. And in doing so, we'll also, be able to make it so that the spectators will be able to, piecemeal their tickets. They can choose if they want to come to one show, or we're going to split it up into several shows in the course of one day. So they can pick their event. So very few of the athletes end up, jumping so many classes. Sometimes they jump two, right? They cross over into two divisions, and so they may be in two different shows. For the most part, most of the athletes, if they do cross over. They'll go into 2 divisions instead of 3 or 4. It gets to be really redundant at that point. So we're excited. It's a new thing. From looking at it from the traditional bodybuilding perspective. Having competed myself, since I was a teenager, I've never been in a show like that. But I have seen one now where it was so efficient and so well run, and everybody appreciated it, and there was no negatives. The athletes were finished. I mean, if you're on at 9 a.m., you might be done by 11.
Oh, that's awesome.
Bye-bye. Go enjoy your big fat lunch and whatever you want to eat, drink, be merry. Go ahead. And then if you want to come to the after party that night, go ahead. Go eat and then come tonight at the night show. And after the last show, and then we'll all go out, and party it up. You know what I mean? So it's a little different of a format. So we're breaking tradition, that's for sure. We're trying to break it open, break tradition, and do things a little different for the sake of the athletes as well as the spectators and everybody involved, really.
Now, is it just your own promotion? Is that going to be pretty much going to be all across WNBF, just yours?
Yeah, we're doing the groundbreaking on that one.
Wow.
So I think it'll be fine, and everybody will enjoy it. I think there's hardly any negatives. Like I said, I can't even think of any real ones. So it's going to be our show, and then as other shows grow, then they're likely to do the same, I would think, because it'll prove itself to be the way to go,
Right.
So that's all.
So we're going to come back to that because I have some questions. I mean, I've been trying to egg on some of these people from the show we did last year, and she wants to, but she's on. I'll go back. I'll get back to that later. It's a different topic. So now, getting back to you,
Yes.
How old were you when you started working out?
Yes.
And what was, I guess, because I took a questionnaire in this Facebook page, and they wanted to know all these questions. And my question is, how old were you when you started, and when did you do the Mike Mentzer workout before you met him?
Yes. The specifics on that is, I started working out when I was, we could say 17. I was a senior in high school, right around then. And like I said earlier on, I bought Mike Mentzer's workout booklets, back in the day. So he still had them advertised in Muscle and Fitness and those magazines. And so I went ahead and I put, I was a teenager. I didn't even have a checking account at the time. And I remember putting, cash and change into an envelope, jingling and everything. And I mailed it on out, and I ordered, his courses. And it's funny, flash forward, because Mike remembered me because of that.
Really?
That I was this kid that put money in an envelope. Isn't that funny? But he had integrity. I'm telling you. He stood by the order, sent me my booklets, and anybody could have just taken the cash out of the envelope, right?
Right.
So I ordered them, and I followed those routines verbatim. The original heavy duty routines. They were a 3-day-a-week workout, and I did them from age 17. Let's say 17, it was late 17, so from 18, 19, I competed for the first time as a teenager, strictly on heavy duty. And those are the pictures that you'll see on not just the current website that I have, intenseheart.com, but I'm also, let me give a little plug, this week, my new website, MrAmericaHeart.com comes out. And also YouTube channel, I have videos coming up. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So on there, you'll see some pictures from when I was a teenager as well, and competing for the first time. And so after 2 years of training, I did strictly Mike Mentzer heavy duty. I competed as a teenager. I put on about 20 or so pounds of pure muscle, and from that point on, I continued for a little bit longer to train that way, and then I moved from New York out to Los Angeles, and boy, you get yourself in the middle of the culture. I was working out at World Gym in Venice. I was working out at Gold's Gym in Venice as well. So I would jump between the two gyms. So I saw all of the superstars.
Really?
Yeah, all of them. And so when you're seeing it every day, and they're training every day, and or you see it every time you go to the gym and they're training a certain way. I fell prey to it myself for, almost 5 years. I trained from 20 to 26, 21 to 26. I came out here when I was 21, right? I was just about to turn 21. So from 21 to 26, I trained, conventional style training with, average 2 or 3 sets per exercise. I never had a great tolerance for a whole bunch of exercise in the first place. So as far as volume goes, and things just never felt right. I'd get those little minor injuries, and so I'd have to turn things back or roll back the volume, and it just without thinking about it. I just couldn't do as much as most other people did, and I wasn't anabolically enhanced either. So my workouts were sort of copying the drug version of bodybuilding, and that's just not the way to go. I'm for the most part, as we already discussed in our last interview, other than pro hormones and things like that, I've been a natural bodybuilder. That's been my thing. I want to make gains and progress naturally, and make them stay. And so that was right up until I was 26 or so, and then from 26 to now, I just turned 53 a few days ago. That's how many years is that training on high intensity?
Gosh, I'd say that's over a good 30 years, right?
Yeah.
So you moved out here So you moved out here from New York around 86, 87?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I moved out here from Hawaii in 86. Because you're you're only a few older years than I am. I'm like, I just turned 50. I just turned 52. 50, not 52, 50.
Right.
So that time frame. From what time frame did you know Mike Mentzer? How did your relationship with Mike Mentzer blossom? And outside of working out, how was he as a person?
Well, my initial, remember I said I was working out at World Gym and at Gold's Gym in Venice at the time, right? And I met Mike for the first time, very, very first time. He was sleeping in a car. In a parking lot, in the Gold's Gym parking lot. And, I'd say good morning to him. I'd be friendly with him and things like that. And,
right.
But he was very quiet and kept to himself, so I didn't have much to say. And, again, to me, at the time, he was my idol.
Right.
He was an idol to me. So I don't have idols anymore, but, that was the case for me. So I had a huge amount of respect for the man. I had a huge amount of respect for just about everybody, every Mr. America, Mr. Universe, Mr. Olympia at the time. So, in his case, so I did as well. So I let him do his thing. But a couple of years later, right around 1992, 91, 92, Mike had sort of done a little resurgence in the training business, and he was training people at Gold's Gym in Venice, and I was living at that point in Huntington Beach down south, and I saw an article in, again, a muscle magazine, and I just picked it up, and boom, there was his phone number at the end of the article, and the article made so much sense to me, and it brought me all the way back to all of the original, the fundamental principles that Mike taught, and and I even have right here for everybody to see. I even have my books. I have my High Intensity Training Mike Mentzer Way. I have my other favorite book, Mike Mentzer Heavy Duty 2. And in this book right here, he details all of the fundamental principles that he's always shared, from the beginning. And it made so much sense to me when I read this article from him that right away I remember working in my garage at the time, and I was fixing some equipment, and I had left him a voicemail, saying I was interested in training, and I didn't know where he was, and I was just moving back up to the Venice area, and I just moved to Playa del Rey, and when I called him up, it ends up we were living on the same block, so we got together after that. We met at Gold's Gym in Venice, and he trained me for that, most of that year. and I made some, fantastic progress. The training itself, it was a more advanced version of heavy duty. It was no longer 3 days a week. If he had just written this book, right, Heavy Duty 2, or the manuscript for the book was done. It had not gone public, and he was telling me about that training in that book. And so, training once every 4 days or so, that became a standard for me at the time. And when he, took me through it at Gold's Gym, it was intense. It was brutal. People would stare because, we'd walk in the gym and 17 minutes later we were walking out of the gym. So it's no joke. This is no joke. So, and I grew from it. That was the whole point, was that I grew. And, it wasn't just bulky fat either. It was obvious new muscle growth. And it brought me all the way back to, well, look, this is just, without anabolics, and I'm training this way and, making progress. That was just obvious to me. There was no question. There was no question anymore. There was just no question. That was the way to go. And, properly applying the principles that I now teach for Joanne. I talked to you about that. In Mike's absence, Joanne Sharkey over on MikeMentzer.com, she's hired me to, handle his online training clients. And, it's great. It's fun. It's, the clients, are very interested, and they make really great progress. So, I'm very happy doing it and be a part of it, and also giving back a little bit to him. How's that sound? Right. In some way, right?
Right. Now, so I would say around 80, 86, and I'm not trying to bang on Mike. I know he went through some mental issues. Was that time when you saw him in the car when he maybe was going through something like that?
Yeah. The great thing about Mike was he never made, he never, told stories about that time period. He flat out, said that he wasn't in his right mind. And the day did come, where he woke up one day and said, come on, Mentzer, get it together, grab your faculties. You're way more sane than this. And from that day forward, he started running his business and doing, the training as we know it in Gold's Gym in Venice. Other than that, in his life, just like a lot of people, that would probably be considered a darker era or a darker period in his life. It certainly didn't take away from the quality of the man. I can tell you that much, that he was genuine and had integrity. I can tell you that much. That was my experience with him, and I know that a lot of people around had the same experience. So and certainly this, when it came to training, when it came to intellectual things, are just intellect. He encouraged me to get back to reading books.
Right.
Right. And because of him, I read Atlas Shrugged 3 times. I enjoyed it so much. I read The Fountainhead 3 times. I enjoyed them so much, that I bounced between the two, back and forth. And it was just strictly because I enjoyed them. I'm not an objectivist, which is a whole other, belief system. I believe that we are responsible for a lot of things going on in our life, even though I'm a Christian. Right. And that ultimately, we have free will, free choice. So I suppose there are some aspects of that objectivist philosophy. That's a philosophy, mixed in, right? Because I believe it does fall on us as individuals. But he was very much about developing your intellect. And I can tell you this much, that the funnest, how do you like that? The funnest part about teaching heavy duty, even to the clients in the gym, teaching high intensity training. Let's just, for lack of a better term, call it high intensity training, just for the moment. Because some of the clients I don't do, that I have in the gym, some of them I don't do verbatim heavy duty. Right. Okay. Right. But the fundamental principles do apply. So when we do high intensity training, the great part about it is they find that they can train, 2 days a week, and from the moment they come in the gym, from the time they come in the gym, get changed, maybe splash some water on their face and wake up and get ready to rock and roll. It's a 30, 40-minute visit to the gym overall, total, right?
Right.
They're in the gym, changed, come on out. They'll do their warm-ups. They know what to do to warm up, and bam, I'm right there with them. And then we go, and we do all the things that we need to do, and bang, they're gone. And the great aspect about that is to be able to say to some of them, look, when they worry about, am I doing enough? Well, the results tell the truth. No, you are doing enough, right. Number one. But then number two, why don't you use some of this time to do something that you've always wanted to do? Take your wife out. Work on your relationship with your wife. Read another book, right? Like Mike used to say to me, read another book. Learn a new language. Hey, man, instead of the 9 hours a week that most people spend in the gym, which I have that correct, by the way, do the math. 6 days a week, an hour and a half at a shot. That's 9 hours a week. Let's break that down versus 2 sessions a week, 40 minutes in and out. I call it 40. No, they're in and out in 40.
Right.
I don't even schedule people, that long, So they're in and they're changed, they're prepared, they're warmed up, and the workout itself, as I always told you, is much less than that. The actual physical workout, from the moment we actually hit a real set to the very end of the workout, is half that. But boom, they're out the door. 2 sessions a week at 40 minutes. That's 80 minutes a week. Maybe an hour and a half. You want to round it up to an hour and a half versus 9 hours. Well, I could find for that 7.5 hours a week, man, I could start a new business, man. I could learn a new language. I can invest it in my relationship with my wife, my kids. I can go and take my dog for 2 45-minute walks. I mean, I'm like the greatest guy in the world now because of these things. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to invest all of that time in a singular effort to become, a good bodybuilder, and a lot of them, they're not even trying to be a good bodybuilder. It's just they believe that they should work out that much. So when I go to the gym, working, I see the same people day in and day out, sometimes twice a day in the gym, and they've worked their 9 to 5, but they're spending another hour and a half in the gym at night or in the morning, and to what end? They're not. A lot of them aren't stepping on stage,
right,
but they feel they have to, and a lot of them are walking injuries, and they don't get it. They're not recovering. They're not open to listening either. I'll just tell you that much. I don't proselytize it. I don't push it on people. Unless they ask, of course, then I'll give it to them.
So you train a lot of fitness bodybuilding competitors, right? Do you have regular clients, like people in their 50s who just want overall fitness? And when you do I'm sure you have to separate those two types of workout: competitor workout and overall general fitness.
Yeah, the athlete, the competitive athlete, you make sacrifices and you push the envelope. I always said people would see me working out before a show, sometimes in the last 5 years, and they'd say, wow, you're doing a little bit more than what you say, like that. And it drives you, when you're competing, every detail counts. And, even Mike used to say to me that, well, that is when you train your abs. That is when you maybe you need some forearm work. That's when you have to think in terms of the complete balance, and you walk a fine line right then, of overtraining. You certainly do. So the athletes, boy, while the general public does not have much concern for whether their forearm is in perfect balance to their upper arm,
right?
The athlete who's competing, that is a concern, and the athlete who's competing, they want to have their calves in balance to their thighs. So yeah, we train those calves, and in a lot of cases they don't need as much as what we may even have them do. So we scale it back as we go. So I'm not so dogmatic about it. We'll touch those muscles, we see how we progress, and then we adjust accordingly. So that's the main thing, is that making the proper adjustments when you don't see the proper progress, that's important. The general public, and that's the truth, Pat, is that the majority of my clients are fitness-minded individuals who want to be in better shape. It doesn't matter their age, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way up to their 70s right now, an 80-year-old even. The majority of them being fitness-minded individuals, they still train infrequently, they train intensely, and some of them, as they get older, like in their 70s and 80s, it is necessary for them to do, some not to failure routines, some routines where they just go through the motions, right. To keep the joints lubed up, and they got to have movement. Otherwise, sitting on that couch is not good. And plus, on top of it all, in their 70s and 80s, a lot of them are retired. So keep in mind, they're not going to a job, most of them, where they used to have a lot of movement. So we have to sort of create it, or put in accessory things for them to do. But other than that, the majority of them are fitness-minded individuals, and that's really where I take a lot on my videos that are coming out. On YouTube, you can find that on Mr. America Heart. That's the channel. It'll be up this week with the websites all being launched this week. You'll see a lot of training tips, and in those training tips, I go over a lot for beginners, and just people of different age groups. So it's not just the bodybuilders, it's not just the competitive athletes, because the truth is that they need a lot of attention as a show comes closer. As you know, a competitive athlete, if they have a coach helping them, they need a lot of attention. And so as the shows get closer, I hand them off to somebody else usually, because in my case, it just takes way too much time.
All right, let's go to questions now.
Yeah.
Pete Branham wants to know, you were doing one-on-one training a while back through John Sharkley and got out and went back to volume training. Now you're back what? I mean, I know you answered that already. That volume training was in that 5 years, remember? You were explaining it earlier.
Oh,
yeah. So he pretty much answered that question. Okay, another question from Walter Cobb, I think he's from Germany, wants to know if Mike really did a 424 cadence back in the 70s. Walter doesn't think so. Walter hasn't seen a heavy muscular guy yet who is doing that cadence.
Wow, that's a good one, because there are some old videos that you can find on YouTube that show some of Mike's original teachings, where he has his brother Ray and his girlfriend Kathy as models,
right? And
they are lifting the weight. It's not 424 for sure. It is more of a 412, where the negative, or a 312 even, where the negative is about a 3-second negative, a 1 or 2 second positive, and a 1 second static if they're holding it in the static position. So while I was not there in person in the 70s to see Mike train, I can verify, that he certainly didn't train me, with a firm 424, must be super slow, must be, curl that weight up in the machine, and then 1001, 1002. It wasn't that way. It was for sure a stop, a hard contraction, and then slowly lowering it. Now that's not to say that he didn't find it to be better. See, but in my case, as recent as the late 1990s, he was still training people, and he trained his clients in the same gym that I was at in Marina del Rey at that point. And we both were trainers there, which was kind of neat. You're a trainer alongside a guy that was like your idol, man. A training mentor, and just my friend. That really, he would train them, and they would use an emphasis on 4, 1, 2. I would say the average was 4, 1, 2. 4 being the negative, 1 being the static, if there's a static involved. Some exercises don't have a static. If you're doing a squat motion, obviously, what are you going to do? Stand up there? There's no static, there's no resistance, right? And even when you do a press, you lock those elbows, there is no static, So you're laying on the muscles. He would drop it down in 4 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then up, 1, 2, like that. 1001, 1002 on the way up. And that was more consistent with the way that he trained his clients. To answer his question, how did he train? And the most muscular people, I would probably agree they were, a lot more ballistic in nature. They moved the weight a lot quicker. Back in the 70s, though, I got to tell you something. Those videos of Ray and Kathy that Mike did, where Mike's instructing them, and those videos from the old, Arthur Jones Nautilus facilities, where you see Boyer Co. training and Mike instructing and all of that, still a lot slower than what they were doing at the time.
Yeah.
When you look at videos, from Pumping Iron and these guys lifting and lowering weights, they're practically throwing them,
right.
And so, Mike, Ray, and his girl, they did have a little bit more control in what they were doing. The 424 he became more diligent about it with the clients in the late 90s, and then certainly when he shot, when he got around, right before he passed in 2000, 2001, everybody he trained that way. Everybody. They were all, 4 down, 4 up, 1 or 2 second hold in the static for sure. That's just, and again, I don't remember a conversation that we had about it where he explained himself. I just remember seeing him do it.
Now, do you subscribe to that kind of 4-2-4 with your clients yourself, or why do you think he changed his mind and become more diligent about 4-2-4?
There's for a fact. There's a level of safety that's
gotcha.
Much greater,
right.
much greater. There's no comparison safety wise. Secondarily, the time under tension, I think it teaches people to connect better with their muscles. And, not just initially with their nervous system learning how to do an exercise, but over time, they definitely have better time under tension. And so I do use it a lot. And, I use it as probably the original Nautilus numbers I use with my clients the most, which would be, 4-1-2. Just like I just said, Mike did with me. 4-1-2, I feel is adequate. You're not injuring anything that way. To me, going slower than that, we're getting a little bit artificial, and it's artificial and unnatural to me. Everybody by now knows my thoughts on that one. That just myself, I find it to be artificial, unnatural, which I don't know the benefits. Somebody would have to run some good double-blind studies on all of that to find the benefits. And probably, Doug McGuff and John Little, they've done a good job of what they're doing, and fabulous book they wrote. And I know they train slower than I would.
Okay, so Eric Bowen, in one of Mike's writing, he said people regularly gain 30 to 40 pounds in 3 to 4 months on the ideal routine in heavy duty too. What were your gains like when you started it, and your trainees that you have used it on?
Handling it on myself, I was already an advanced bodybuilder, okay? And I had already been training for, 7-8 years, right? 2 or 3 of them were done on heavy duty, and then 5 on conventional training. And so I already put in 8 years of training. So you always have to consider that asterisk or that factor. And then my training under him, I put on, it was 15 pounds of pure muscle, hardly any body fat. It was just amazing for a natural guy, to really see that. It took a while. I trained with him for a while, and but still, it didn't happen in a month. I think the natural guys, a lot of the gains that, I'll say it, a lot of the gains that, people were making that Mike was training, a lot of them were on gear. Right. A lot of them were. Right. And so the standard, of course, was, 10 to 20 to 30 pounds. Sure. They would. They did. I've seen them. Yes. And the natural guys, on the other hand, we have to scale that down. The anabolics are powerful chemicals, so we have to scale that down. I would probably say, well, I do right now have clients, online clients through Joanne, that the average progress for a male is really steady, and seeing them put on more of a 5 pound, if they're natural, to put on a good solid 5 pounds in a month is really good. Is really good. And so I've seen that a lot, and not on beginners. We're talking about people who have been training. So putting on 5 pounds, and talk about like getting closer to your potential. That's really the real deal answer right there. I don't mind saying it. It's just, that's the reality. Is probably you're maxing it as a natural at 5 pounds. So the people at Mike, had dealt with, a lot of them were artificially enhanced at the time at Gold's Gym in Venice, and the culture in Southern California is a lot different, than the rest of the world, and well, with the exception of a few areas, I'm sure, but there's a definite underculture of anabolic usage, in this part of the country. And I can't say it any other polite way. Let's just say it. Without judge, I don't have any judgment on it. It's just I'm trying to state a fact without, without being judgmental on it. I've always said that to you, Pat, that I don't appreciate anybody judging me, and I don't want to do that with them either. If someone chooses to use, go right ahead, And but that's the parameters I would share, with that the guy who just asked the question. I forgot his first name.
Eric Bowen.
Eric. So Eric, the proper answer is yes, he had clients like that. Where they were in their training, I don't know. I don't know if they were raw beginners. I don't know if they were advanced. I do know that a lot of them were anabolically enhanced. And, just for your edification, the natural version of that would be more on a lower scale. But when you're talking about being meticulous about it and being able to put on a solid 4 or 5 pounds in a month of lean mass, I mean, wow. And that's with having already been a trainee. So that's my clients as well. I can do that with my clients on the regular. I train one man right now who's dropped, 23 pounds in the last 3 months, but yet he's put on 4 pounds, 5 pounds of muscle. That's like the holy grail in natural bodybuilding. So to drop fat, gain 5 pounds of muscle at the same time, whew, man, that's just amazing stuff right there. You know what I mean? That's really the reality.
So Arthur Jones and Mike Mentzer always said, if you train heavy duty or high intensity, very intense, you should be able to hit your genetic potential between 1 and 2 years. Now, with your own clients, have you ever seen any of your clients hit their genetic potential from a guy just coming to the door? Hey, John, I want to compete. Look at me. I'm a total ectomorph or whatever. But boom, what was your experience?
I really hate that they ever said that in the first place. That's the first part. Because I get asked that question a lot. Boy. I do. In fact, I like the way you asked the question, though. Have I ever trained anybody? And I have a man who's a plumber, great guy. And he did say to me when he first came in, he said, I just want to hit my potential. And now it's been 3 years, almost 3 years, and he's put on quite a bit of muscle. He's transformed himself. He went from that plumber, 205 pounds with a butt crack hanging out of his jeans and everything, fat wrapped around his belly, to being the guy that all of his clients say, what are you doing? Because he looks so fit. He looks so amazing in his his polo shirt when he goes out on the job, and his jeans. And, in that realm, and in that regard, I would have to say he's still, boy, you know what? That roof is getting closer, because I saw him make great progress, like that first year and a half, fantastic progress even, while losing body fat. And now that his body fat is more stabilized, or at a very reasonable level where he wanted it, I can see that we're getting closer, to what would be his genetic potential. And this is now in like year 3. And he loves his workouts. I've had to scale him down to where, boy, those workouts are short. Oh man, they're brutal and they're short. So he understands and he trusts me. So that's why, he does them. But he also knows that he's now had a second lease on his, his plumbing life. And he's 50 too. So at 50 years old, he's got a new lease on his life and his career. So I hope that kind of answers the question. That's just one example. But I would say that, around year 2 or year 3, I would agree that in that zone, I don't think very many people do. Like Mike said, within a year, you should actualize your physical potential if you follow, all of the principles correctly. That's the caveat, is that you have to follow all of the principles correctly. So things happen in people's lives between, they get sick, they travel, they have business, they have family issues that come up. They go through periods of a lack of sleep. All of these things violate all of the principles, that would optimize, somebody's growth, okay, and achieving their potential. So that being the case, okay, I'll roll with 1 to 2 years. And then now I got to say, well, I've had some people that, we've gone over 2 years and they still are making good progress. Would it be an overall body mass type progress? Probably not. Okay, so does their bicep improve? Does their delt improve? Does their calf improve? Can they get, bigger thighs? Yeah. I think we kind of attack it on more of a body part basis at that point. You see what I'm saying? Right. Because they even know that, the big rush of the big gain happened in that first year. And there's not much left. The percentages are much smaller at that point. So Arthur and Mike were smart, and they knew what they were looking at. And, within the proper context, Mike never said it. I want to be clear about this. He never said, just training heavy duty, anybody can actualize their physical potential within 1 year. Okay. He gave the caveat ahead of time. It's in writing even, that if you follow these principles, if you go down this road, then in theory it's true. You should be able to. But I just really haven't found very many people who would be willing to be so dedicated to their eating, their training, their lifestyle for that entire year. And make the proper adjustments, because there are adjustments in that book that I fell prey to it too, where I stuck with. I loved the ideal routine so much, that Mike was urging me, just take a break, do the consolidated routine, and I hated it so much. I hated changing it so much that I didn't want to, and I pushed it off, and I was violating principles myself at that time. So I hope that kind of answers that question as well. Like, the guys will understand what I mean. Always there's a caveat. Always there's a condition involved. Think about it,
All right,
Go ahead, fire another one. I like these questions. These are good.
So Eric Bowen again. How did Mike instruct you during the mid-90s when you were a client? What was the momentum like? And I would love for you to relate some stories from you guys were together and what was like to be trained by Mike.
Wow, that's a good one. First of all, Mike was a smoker, okay? And, when I first met him, I walked into that gym and, physically he wasn't as imposing as he used to be. But, we did a great workout the first time I worked out. And I remember walking out of the gym with him, like 17 minutes later, and we sat out front of Gold's Gym in Venice at the table, and, he lights up a cigarette, and I had to say, whoa. Hey man, let me move myself to this side of the table, and he had a real good laugh, and he laughed hard, and he goes, wow, no vices, huh? Like that. And I said, no, that's not the case. Everybody's got, I guess, challenges with some vices here and there. And he goes, judging me for mine, huh? He had a way about him, that he was quick with the words.
Yeah, like a
very
funny
quick with the words.
sarcasm.
Yeah, and he on the one hand, he would be so. It seemed like he would be so by the book and so by the letter, and things must be this way. But then all the way on the other side of the coin, I mean, if he hadn't heard from me for a while, after we were done training, if he hadn't heard from me for a while, it was amazing, because I'd get a random message out of nowhere, and it would be, man, all from here, I mean, just, John, I miss you, and I don't want you to think that, I don't care. I know you haven't heard from me either, but, I like to hear from you once in a while. I mean, he actually said, he goes, I'm not an automaton. An automaton, he said. I remember that word on the voicemail.
Right.
And at the time, I almost started crying. I had to have my girlfriend at the time listen to that message just to go, check this out. This is Mike leaving me a message like this. I mean, he's a real, from the heart kind of guy. But that's a lot of this. That's a side that a lot of people never got to see. And so spending time with him, I'm handling this part of the question first, by the way. Spending, quality time with him was really cool. He had me over his apartment plenty of times, and I would ask if we could see that video that he held on top of that TV. He had a copy of the 1980 Mr. Olympia video, among whatever else he had, and I'd ask, can we see that video again, just to check like this, and he'd pop that thing in right quick. I wouldn't have to bend his, twist his arm. He'd put that thing in right quick, and he'd sit there, and he'd let me go, because I sit there going, I don't see it. How did Arnold win this thing? You were 20 years before your time. I mean, if you look at the video, you'll see his thickness. I mean, the look of his physique, the muscle, the definition. I mean, he was 20 years before his time. And I'm talking about Mike now.
Right.
While Arnold was subpar and played a lot of games on stage, and so and he'd let me go, and then he'd sit there just eating his food, nodding his head, because he had been through it so many times watching this video that, this was just confirmation, that he would hear me talking like that, and it's not like, I mean, I'm a judge in our organization. I judge shows all the time,
right,
so. It's not like I was being influenced by my love for him, as my friend. It was more, I could see it, physique-wise. No, I don't agree with the outcome. 5th place, 1980. Totally disagree. Can't roll my eyes any further than this. Okay, yeah. So in a subjective sport, that's what we have, though, and that's what we deal with, is that bodybuilding, things like that have happened over the years, just like in boxing, Right. So there's not much you can do about it. You accept that if you get involved in the sport. You accept that if you get involved in boxing, that there's going to be times where you've annihilated somebody, and mysteriously the judges didn't see it that way. Okay, well, for whatever reason. So the training with Mike, He loved all the quotes that you see in his book. He actually said those quotes. He wrote these books. He wrote these 2 books exactly the way that he spoke. That's how I know, by the way, that this book, which John Little and Joanne finished after Mike had passed, High Intensity Training the Mike Mentzer Way, when they finished the book, I know for a fact that he wrote most of the book because of the way he spoke, and the examples that he used. The examples of, if I was training you in the gym and I held a gun to your head and I said, get another rep. Well, you get 5 more reps, That example he'd shout out at me all the time in the gym. The example of, he knew I was heterosexual, so he'd say to me, John, if there was 5 naked women sitting here waiting for you, just to finish this set and do the best you can, what would you do? Like this. And, he'd get me to go. You go crazy with the weights. You know what I mean? You push as hard as you can. And it wasn't so much what he was saying. It's that Mike Mentzer was saying it. That's what it was. It's that, I had that kind of respect for him. So, having a man of his stature in my life, speak like that, was very motivating. The examples that he writes about in his books, that is the way that he actually spoke in real life. And the examples of, he used an example in one of his books about, if you were a Martian who landed on this planet for the very first time and stepped in the gym and asked me to train you, and I said to you, great, let's go. And I trained you, and we did 4 exercises, a grand total of one set per exercise. And I took you through a couple of force reps, a couple of negatives, but I explained it to you all ahead of time. And we walk out of the gym. You wouldn't see that as being odd because you're a Martian. You just landed here. You don't know that the rest of the planet is doing these, marathon routines for an hour and a half, an hour, 5 sets of 3 excises. You don't know that. So he uses that example in his book as a great way of explaining, how to be open-minded, let's say, and how to use your intellect and your reason properly to organize your own routines. And anybody who has questions like that, they should go to MikeMentzer.com. I know that Joanne recently put up a little bit of a statement about how she's starting the first phase of her retirement, and she's selling all of her books still at the original prices. Those books I just showed you on Amazon, Pat, one of those books goes for $170 on Amazon, but she still sells them for $29. Wow. So if you're smart, if you're interested in getting a hold of those books and learning about the system that Mike created, then you should go to MikeMentzer.com and order those books while the stock lasts. As soon as the stock is out, she's not reprinting.
That's what you said, yeah. She's not going to print. All right, another question. Rich Thorpe wants to know what success Mike had in training his clients just once a week in terms of muscle growth. Rich said he tried the consolidation training and 6-7 years ago and lost conditioning, maintained strength, but he looked flabby. I know the answer to that, but I'll have you answer that question.
Yeah, the flabby part, that's part diet right there. You know that. Yeah. But taking it back to the first part of his question, yes, he had clients. They trained once a week. They did make progress. They were advanced trainees, mostly. Okay. There were 2 conditions that Mike wrote about with regards to when somebody should be on the consolidated routine. One condition was, if it was somebody who had a very inferior ability to recover and recuperate from workouts. Okay, and he uses an example in his book of one of his clients. It's a great story. Right. It's a great example, of how he adjusted things down until he found that the consolidated routine was for him with a certain number of days off. That's number one. Number two, the other condition of being on the consolidated routine was that it was supposed to be, and I quote, the final stop for the advanced bodybuilder to actualize their physical potential. Okay? So when the man who just asked the question,
Rich Thorpe.
When Rich just asked that question 7 or 8 years ago, he did it and he became deconditioned. So my question number one would be, were you an advanced bodybuilder and did you milk every bit of the ideal routine first, all of the other training first, and then find yourself in an effort to maximize your physical potential going to the consolidated routine? That's the condition. Okay, that's the way that it's actually written about in the book. That's number one, or number two. So the first was if you have a low ability to recover or was an albino of recovery. That's one thing. The second thing is an advanced bodybuilder who's physically milked as much as they can from all of the other training. This is the last stop. That's the order of things according to how Mike wrote. And then on top of that, the big mistake I see that people make when they go to those routines and they hit the consolidated routine is, man, oh man, the one thing they do is they do not use high-intensity techniques like they're supposed to. So if they do, then they do make progress. Mike's clients that did train that way most certainly did. They were advanced. It was a nice way for them to actually bump it up to a whole other level and probably get even closer. Potential, by the way, we can only define potential theoretically. God is the only one who knows,
Right.
Somebody's potential. So, did they make progress at that point as advanced bodybuilders in size and in muscle? Well, yeah, they did. I'm here to say, yeah, they did. The internet warriors that claim the opposite, and then the myriad of people that are not reading everything they can through Mike's own writings. Read it. Understand what he says. Understand the parameters. Understand what I just said. I just pulled one little point out, which was Mike said, when you do go to that consolidator routine, the advanced bodybuilder should, and I quote, there should be a liberal usage of high-intensity techniques. And then he goes on to name 4 or 5 or 6 techniques. They can get the book and read about it themselves. Okay, that's the way I'll leave that one on the table right there, because they need to go ahead and do a reread exactly of what it says. So as far as getting fatter, that's excess calories. If you technically, anybody who's working out 6-7 days a week and then they scale it way down, well, they'll be burning less calories.
Right.
So they should make an adjustment for it. Even better, they should take it first to the ideal routine. First, take a couple weeks off from training entirely,
right.
And then go to the ideal routine and work every adjustment, everything that you read about in those 2 books that I've held up multiple times in this interview. Okay, everything that you read about how he says you should, adjust those routines when progress starts to slow down. After you've done all of that, I want to help people. This is not some kind of I make nothing from telling you all this. If anything, I want you to go and buy his books. I love Joanne, and I want her to be prosperous, and I want his legacy to live on. That's the kind of respect that I have for the man and for her. And the bottom line becomes, that you have to read the whole book and understand everything that he says. Don't just stop and take one little line out of it. If that were the case, look, I'm a Christian. There's a line in the Bible, where the Bible calls Satan the Lord of this earth. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if you just take that right there, Satan is Lord. All right, Satan is Lord. Well, as a Christian, we know that right there is the antithesis of everything we believe. Satan's not Lord in our world, So that's just the way that it rolls. You have to read everything that's, respective to that, written before it, written after it, and anything that's written related to it. So what's the context? That's what we're looking at. So what's the context with everybody, everybody should be asking, what's the context within which Mike spoke? And, believe it or not, Pat, the majority of the clients that I've helped, through Joanne and through MikeMentzer.com, the majority of them simply needed clarity, on exactly, how to use certain parts of the system. And when we do our consultations, I'm quoting pages. I'll take pages out of it. For years, this was my Bible before I was a Christian, so I can find the exact quotes of whatever I'm looking for, and I give them the page number, and they can go ahead and find it themselves and read about it within context.
All right, another question. Mark Houghton, I think he's from Australia, is interested to learn how your training has changed over the years and the training and diet you use for your success in the 2013 Mr. America. Just major changes.
Yeah,
I guess a few of these guys wants to know, like for example, Edgar says, your conscious diet, but for natural guys, it's almost impossible to lose fat without losing some muscle mass along with that. Because a lot of these guys want to know the diet part, because they're really like big, heavy duty guys, and it's the diet and you're talking about. Did you really go with the higher carb, minimum protein, and all that aspect of the diet end?
Preparing for the Mr. America, my favorite meal was, and I ate it 3 times a day. And it's just, I like my food, first of all. Okay, so when it comes to my diet, and anybody any client that I advise on their eating plans, they have to like their foods. And it's gone in phases where some things I liked for a while and then don't like them anymore. They're out. Right. And I bring something else in. And during that phase, prior to the Mr. America, my favorite meal by far and away, everybody saw me eating it. Everybody. At work, at the gym. I ate it, again, 3 times a day. I had peanut butter sandwiches on double fiber bread, with raw organic blue agave syrup on top of it. It would soak into the bread, and then I would take Greek yogurt, and I would, take the 100 calories of Greek yogurt. So that would be one little container, right? So it had about 18 grams of protein in it. Greek yogurt, 20 grams maybe at most. Take a little Fage yogurt. I like that brand. Right on top of it, and I'd eat it like a dessert. And I ate that every single day, 3 times a day. It was my favorite meal. And, was I eating high carbohydrates? Yes, I was eating a high carbohydrate diet, high fiber, calorie controlled. Notice I didn't tell you the portion, okay? Mm-hmm. Were the calories low at times? Oh, yeah, it was low. But I actually combined it, and I'm putting this together in my next book of the exact, diet protocol that I would use, how I do believe in cycling the calories, and ergo, you're cycling the carbohydrates a little bit, cycling the protein, cycling the fats a little bit too. Without getting super, super scientific, all in a matter of 1 week, I would go and I would, even on my lowest calorie days, and I mean those calories, I would bring them down to 15. 15 was the lowest that I would go, and 1,500. And on those low calorie days, was I eating carbohydrates? I was eating mainly carbohydrates. I'll look at the camera and I'll say it again. I was eating mainly carbohydrates. How much protein was I eating? Okay, let's take 3 yogurts. That's max 60 grams between the 3 yogurts right there. Max 60 grams. I would have 4 ounces of chicken. What do you get? 25 grams right there. Let's call it 30. Let's go up to 30. So I got 60 plus 9 plus 30. That's 90. 4 ounces of chicken. Okay. I would also have, that would be it on my protein. I wasn't eating any in the morning.
Wow.
So I was having 90 grams of protein every single day. Carbohydrates are protein sparing. Okay. So I was eating high quality protein, 90 grams a day. I was weighing 200 pounds or thereabouts, and dieting, dropping body fat. But the key to dropping that body fat and not losing the muscle mass. You see, when Mark asked the question and he talked about, it's tough as a natural. He doesn't believe you can lose the body fat without losing muscle mass. Well, the answer is in how you cycle the food each week. There's the answer. Okay? When you have higher calorie days, higher carbohydrate days, higher protein days thrown in the course of the week, it's how you cycle it. I don't know any, WNBF natural pro, like I've been. I don't know any who does not cycle their calories, whether you're talking about their carbohydrates as well, their protein, whatever, but they're cycling, and the way you do that matters to retaining muscle tissue. Going on a low-calorie diet, 1,500, and staying on it all the time, bye-bye muscle mass, just so we're clear. 1,800 calories, but when you're used to eating 3,000, bye-bye muscle mass. just kiss it goodbye, because you'll blow through your glycogen each workout, and there's not much restoring it, and your muscle mass is not much to create new growth. Even if you're burning off body fat for fuel, it's being used for fuel. So the answer is yes. I did high carbohydrate on a percentage basis. I just gave you a number. I was only eating 90 grams of protein. Out of the 1,500, 90 times 4 is 360 calories. So 360 calories. You got a calculator over there, Pat?
No, I do not. Hold on. Right here.
Yeah, pull it up on your phone.
90 times 360?
No, let's do this. No, here's the math.
Okay.
It's 360, 1500. Do 360 times 100.
Okay.
And divide by 1500. Equals?
24.
24% protein. That's exactly how much protein I ate every single day on that lower end of my calorie rotation.
Wow.
Okay? That oddly sounds a lot like what Mike prescribed as 25%.
Right.
Oddly enough.
Right.
Right? So there you go. I mean, 24%. And I just did it. I did all of that math off the top of my head right there, with you using the calculator, of course.
Right.
So that's how it would roll. The rest of my calories, 360, that still leaves, 1,140 calories to go. And I kept fats fairly low, and the rest was straight up carbohydrates. And yes, I ate sugar. I did. I ate carbs. I had high fiber as well. That's very important. It kind of stabilizes things and lets you feel good longer as well. So I did have a humongous salad at the end of the day with that chicken on top, So that was one of my favorite meals. I like all the foods that I ate. Loved it. So the evolution is diet-wise, I have not veered much from that. I'll give the details out. I just started writing and putting together the new book, and it'll be out soon, very soon, and that'll be part of it. So tell Mark to just be patient. It'll be out this year for sure, and I will, put it in there. It will be there.
All right, Pete, Edgar, and Mark, hope you guys like that answer. Another question from Thomas Hilmerson. Were there any who responded poorly to this type of HIIT training that you with your clients? And if they did, what changes did you make to their routine?
Wow, that's a good one. Wow. That's a really good question. Did they respond poorly?
Probably not.
Well, no. There were some. I have to admit that there were some. And when I think back, into my memory of which clients, I could see their faces, and I remember the thing I associated with each one of them is while they would train hard under my supervision, and we'd be at the gym, and we would stimulate that muscle. To be quite honest with you, their lifestyle didn't support the progress. So that was the key. That was the key, is that they whether they were late nighters, binge drinkers, party animals, stress cases, absolutely refused to follow any kind of an eating plan, which meant if they were used to eating once a day, they ate once a day. And I don't care who you are. I don't care who says you should do that all fasting thing and eat once a day. I don't agree with it, not at all, and not in a bodybuilding sense. And with even my mainstream clients, we are applying bodybuilding principle to them, right? So I want them to progress. I want them to grow muscle and drop body fat. So their systems would be completely jacked up just because of their lifestyle. And a lot of that had to do with their eating or lack of. And a lot of it had to do with their lack of quality food, quality ingredients necessary. A lot of them were operating, dehydrated 90%, 100% of their time. A lot of them, just showed such a lack of respect for their own bodies along the way, Pat, that, I can't, when I think about it, now you got me thinking. I can think of 3 faces, and every one of them, I remember going to them like this. Do you know what you're doing to yourself like this? I want to grab them by the face and shake them, because no matter what training we did, that was never going to be an answer. And, if they did make progress, it was covered by a pile of fat or they weren't going to make progress because they were too busy. I found out one girl, I didn't know that she had a cocaine addiction. I didn't know. She just seemed like a really happy girl. Was always up when we came to the gym, and dropped a lot of weight really fast. But man, she also wasn't gaining muscle at all. I mean, it was really difficult. You see, so there's a good example of the opposite of a really overweight person. The one example that I can think of, she really got skinny training with me, and it was a struggle week to week. I remember looking at her going, I mean, are you eating anything? I had no idea. And she goes, yeah, I'm eating. I mean, she was zipping. She was, buzzing all the time. She was frying on cocaine and a little bit of crystal meth once in a while. Wow. So, yeah, those are the situations where there's usually something else going on. And then I had one woman, to be honest, there's the other one. I had another one who had a disease. She had Graves' disease. So that's a thyroid disease, and very hollow eyes. George Bush, the first George Bush president, the dad, his wife had Mrs. Bush, the president's wife. Bush, she had Graves' disease, and I remember training a client with it, and it alters the person's metabolism to where she couldn't make progress. Her thyroid wasn't helping us out at all, so it was hard. It was very hard. So she got to her doctor, got the right diagnosis, and it's good. Good answer. Better with medication. Better.
Okay, Brian Collins from United Kingdom. What was Mike's latter-day thoughts and theories regarding training were? Was it different to what was published in his last book, co-authored with John Little, as he have claimed?
Nah.
No.
Nah. That's yeah, Brian. That one's an easy one, Brian. He, that's exactly how he was training clients at the very end. That's exactly how he was training them. The routines that are written in High Intensity Training the Mike Mentzer Way, everything about it, the repetition ranges, the techniques he writes about, right up until the end. I was in the same gym, so I know what I saw, and I know the people he was training. So that's how they trained. It's exactly how they trained. There's no disputing it. I'm an eyewitness to that one. So.
All right, so now we're going to get something fun here. What do you think of this infighting within the HIIT community? There's the super slow guys, the traditional Arthur Jones guys, and the heavy duty guys. Instead of coming in one umbrella, and they're fighting, arguing which one's better. Instead of like bringing HIIT to the masses, people are kind of getting like, you guys can't even get along with each other.
Don't forget the body weight HIIT.
Oh yeah, and the body weight training HIIT.
Yeah. All of it. It's pretty stupid, It's pretty stupid, It's a shame that we all have to sort of come under an umbrella, so to speak, of high intensity training, because each one of them is a form of it. Although, if you ask, every one of them is going to say, "No, you're really not doing it," or "Yeah, he's doing it, but not him," or "That organization is, but that one's not." It reminds me of a story. When I was a trainer at Gold's Gym in Venice, this guy came up to me, and I was training my clients, and he came up to me, and little short guy, and he had really thick glasses, and he says to me, he goes, "I watched you from the balcony. You're the only trainer in here training people the right way," like that. And I went, "Really?" And I remember he was watching me train somebody's calves, and I had them, properly executing it like in really nice form. And he says, "Yep, you're the only one in the whole gym, and we're in the mecca of bodybuilding, right?" And I went, "Well, thank you, I appreciate that." And it ends up, he worked for Super Slow. He was from Florida, and I forget his name, but I remember what he looks like, to this day. And he asked me, he said, at one point he goes, "Man, I'd love to get a workout in with you before I leave, like this." And I actually agreed to it, right? And then I realized as I talked to him that, something was not really all there, because he actually said to me, I'm going to have you thrown up like this. And I went, wait a second, what are how impolite, right? He asks me to train with him, and he's talking about getting me to throw up or, doing super slow or whatever way he wanted to train.
Right.
And that was the part right there for me, which was important, was that he was talking about basically dictating how we would work out that day.
Right.
So in my personal case, those days are gone where I allow somebody to take my workout and tell me what to do. So those days are gone, So I had to let him know, that no, I handle my own workouts. If you want to do this workout, I'll do it with you, and we couldn't agree. How do you like that? I had already told him that I had already done super slow, and it was just negative. I'm not wasting my time with it. Negative. Not going to happen in my own personal workouts, And although rarely I would use it, it's a good technique. Okay,
right.
Rarely I would, but he wanted to do an entire workout, in this nature. I was, let's call it, deconditioned to that technique. If you don't use it regularly,
Right.
Yeah, you're going to suffer a little bit, and you're going to look like you're pretty weak doing it too, because the weights you're not used to handling. So right there and then we were like this. I got this little short guy, couldn't see through the glasses, with this much muscle on his body, I might add. He had that much muscle on his body. I mean, he looked like he spent more time, like this, reading, than he did actually lifting. And I don't mean to be controversial or bash anybody, but if you're going to come up to me like that, just be prepared, right? Here we are 20 years later, and, I'm telling the story because it was funny. And it was so funny to me that I just thought, man, is it his goal now to take me? I think I had just won like the Natural Mr. Universe, so for him, it became sort of a goal to get me to feel sick training via super slow, which he didn't even realize I was already familiar with it. I already had done it, in 2001, 2002. So and that was right before I left Gold's Gym in Venice and moved out to the Pasadena edge of LA and out there. So yeah, it was a funny story, but yeah, the infighting, Pat, it doesn't do anybody any good.
Right,
the general public looks at it all, gets confused. It does zero good. They should just leave each other alone, and if you want to start your own version of high intensity training and call it, NorCal strength, high intensity turbo, okay? Go ahead, I mean, really, right? Go ahead. Is more power to you, but I'm not going to bash it. I don't want to bash it, for me, if you ask my opinion of techniques that I've used, then I'll tell you what worked, what didn't work. Super slow, since I brought it up, I'll go back to it for a moment. Super slow was great the first time I used it, and then it never worked again for me. So it wasn't just me. I went back to it 2 more times, practically banging my head against the wall trying to make it work. And it became a waste of time, So my training partner, same thing. A guy in the gym was trying the same thing. All 3 of us. Similar results, We had good results, and then it just leveled off, and we kept going back to it. Didn't work, for us.
I think super slow is good for like people that like really deconditioned seniors coming in. Even in my own studio, I don't even use super slow. But when I do, it's when they have like maybe some shoulder ailment, then I'll go really slow. But even after that, once it gets stronger, I'll go back to maybe 6, 4. None of that 10 second. It's so tedious. I've tried it like yourself. I tried it, and the first time, oh my gosh, you're right. It was like a cocaine. You go after that. You said it yourself. It's like a cocaine where you're like, oh my gosh, I want this feeling again, and you never get it back. And I did lose a lot of muscle when I did do it. When I tried it, I lost a lot of muscle mass.
If you stay with it, long enough, then your muscle tissue is not being, the fibers are not being stimulated maximally as far as the numbers of fibers, and just that's simply because you're not lifting as much weight.
Right.
It's where muscle fibers fire all or nothing. So if you're going to lift a pencil, you're only going to use enough muscle fibers in your bicep to lift the pencil. It might be 3 fibers, poof, but they all fired as hard as they could to lift the pencil.
Right.
Now go and grab a 45-pound dumbbell and curl it. You're going to get a nice majority of those fibers firing. So, super slow dictates a certain tempo, which even after you've been training on it, it's impossible to use the same weights that you could lift with a different tempo.
Right.
A faster tempo. But they're trying to eliminate all momentum, and I understand why, and I understand the reasons, and it's definitely not my favorite way of going, and it's just not my favorite way of going. I think of the guys you interviewed, McCabe, Brian McCabe, is that his name? First name?
Ryan.
The one from the UK who you interviewed with the beard and the coffee mug.
Edward Harrison.
Edward, that's it. Edward Harrison. I apologize. So when you interviewed Edward, great. I watched all your interviews, by the way. Great one. The way he the information that he put out. I mean, I'm really surprised that there was lower number of views. But great as a he's a great example. The picture you held up of his physique too, from the prior year, wow, he looked great. So the example of when you are a teacher of high intensity training, as you are, right? When you're a teacher, you gain great experience, from adjusting things with certain people and gathering that evidence empirically. Empirically meaning what we do in real life in the gym right there, not in theory. So the empirical counts for so much. And, and Edward, spoke in that way through training his clients. He has a small little studio stuffed with equipment, right? And he does the most with very little. But also, I found it refreshing to hear another trainer talking about how they train their clients and make progress, and training himself as well, and using higher intensity training and techniques. And I don't hear very many of them. I know that I know Doug believes, Dr. McGuff does believe in going slower, and John Little, and they wrote about it in their book and all of that. And I do understand. Not for me. That's all. And not for me. Gave it a fair shot 3 times, and the first time it worked very well, but never again.
Well, John, you should be doing it 10 more times to get the actual effect there, John.
Nah.
Now, what do you think of the body weight training? That's high intensity body weight training. When I can't kind of like cover my mind there, just yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about? Is the one that Drew put out?
Right. Yeah, Drew Bay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not studying it, so in depth. I found what little I saw of it didn't grab my interest enough.
Right.
I can't comment beyond that, other than to say that again, I don't have full exposure to it.
Sure.
I know that Drew is a smart man, and he came up with he comes up with good routines, and I'm sure that there's an application, and just it didn't grab my attention, right off the bat. Just so it's relatively new, in my mind. So I'd be patient. I sit back, keep my eyes open.
Watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Going back to your show, there's this girl that wants you to do the show, but she's on HGH, and I told her I don't think you can do the show on it because the INBF they're pretty strict when it comes to that. I mean, there's a list on your website all the drugs that you're not allowed to take.
Right. And I mean, rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, men and women who want to compete and aren't doing anything at all. And, there has to be a platform somewhere for that, where, you can get it as close as possible to being, 100% natural. I mean, as a promoter, I see the list every year of all the athletes who failed tests around the world in our organization. And, each time I do that, what I just did, I go, gosh, what are they thinking, Because, I heard another WNBF pro say to me, and he's a world champion, and I remember him saying to me, he's a promoter in the WNBF, the INBF, and he said to me, John, for all these people who get caught and busted using, different drugs and different, supplements that have drugs in them and all that, he said, I look at them and it just boggles my mind because they don't realize, it's making that much difference on them. They're not even world champion quality, and they should probably have more of a forethought to think in terms of, let me go these next 7 years and see what my body looks like, putting in proper time, proper effort, proper nutrition. So, the growth hormone is going to disqualify her for 7 years, so she's going to end up, and supposedly we use Olympic drug testing labs, and they have tests for growth hormone now. So that's the other part too. So if a lot of the athletes want to test that one out, they have found in the past couple of years that, you're going to get caught. Again, I saw the list, okay? And I saw what they failed for. So, they're getting, a few of them are getting popped because of the growth hormone. So,
what about the stuff they sell in GNC called Performix? You ever heard of that? It's supposed to be a natural testosterone type thing.
Not that one in particular. I know that the testosterone boosters are, a lot of them are going to pop you on a test, and then it takes research. You gotta go and make sure that if it's an herbal supplement and it has no relation at all to any of the chemicals on the list, then by all means, if you think it's going to do anything, by all means, if it's giving you a fractional difference in your mind, even psychologically, by all means, if it's not on the list and not related to anything on the list, by all means, go ahead. But boy, there's just so much snake oil out there, so I knew a kid who was taking over-the-counter stuff from, one of those vitamin stores. And, he kept saying to me, it's legal, it's legal, it's legal. He had fatty liver. His liver was blowing to bits because he was using pro-hormones that were over-the-counter legal that the government hadn't caught up to. So, that just makes me go, what are you thinking, Just because it's legal, just because he put on 5 or 10 pounds of lean mass from it, and he would go up and down. He'd go on and off like that. And, he was on a constant cycle. So it's sort of a mini steroid cycle. And a lot of them don't realize what they're doing to themselves, that a lot of the companies, once they get popped by the FDA and they have to either shut down or sell a different kind of a supplement, then what they do is they shut down production of what they just got popped on, and they change the chemical a little bit. And then all the people out there become guinea pigs because they don't do proper testing on it. It falls under the heading of supplement, but it's not on the radar of the FDA yet. Right. So that's dangerous. So I don't like it, man.
So we're coming to the end of my time. So you have a new website, Facebook, YouTube. Please put it out there because I know a lot of these guys are going to want. Yeah. If you guys want consultation with John, he's the Mike Mentzer phone consult guy now. If you guys just go there, learn.
Yeah. First of all, yes, the Mike Mentzer heavy duty consultations, it's very important they understand that while I answer questions with you right here, on my own, personal opinion, my own personal experiences, I teach heavy duty Mike Mentzer training, the system. I teach it through Joanne Sharkey and through MikeMentzer.com. So they're interested in that and learning how to properly adjust heavy-duty training, their own heavy-duty training, and how to apply it in their own lives and make great progress, then that's done online, going to the website, and they can, check in with Joanne and purchase the consultation, the package through her. So I do that. I, pretty much no longer do my own consultations on the side. I just, it almost seems contradictory to me right now. So I'm fine with that. However, I do have a new website coming out this next week. You'll see it. It's MrAmericaHeart.com. And my last name, of course, is spelled Heart. So hopefully you can flash that across the screen, MrAmericaHeart.com. There'll be a YouTube channel as well, and that is Mr. America Heart with a space between each one of those words, so they're not straight across like a website. And then social media, yeah. You can find me on Facebook. I have my own athlete page, John Hart, and then I have also an Instagram and Twitter that are both out this week as well, and those are Mr. America, or I apologize, they are Mr. A Hart, MR capital A Hart, right? So you can search it that way. Capital M, lowercase r, capital A, and then capital H, Hart at the end, right? So they could find me through all of those things. But really, the objective in that, and even putting out the videos, giving a lot of trainer tips and things like that, and I have some really special interviews coming up. Even within that, the hope, and I'm really transparent about it. You've held up a couple of my books in our last interview, and I have a couple of books, Mr. America Shape Up series, and then Physique 101, and then I have some downloads from the Mr. America series that if they want to buy them separately, they can, or they can download either one of those books. Now they can do that through my website, and I'm also offering personal autographed copies of the books, so they can go through Amazon and find it, but through me and my website, we are shipping out autographed copies. And, I have no problem, personalizing it if that's what they wish, having it made out to them. Right. That's fine with me. But we're doing that. And, again, being totally transparent, I'm selling books through the website. And, hopefully over time they'll enjoy the videos and, watch the videos a million times as well. That would be great. It's really appreciated, We're in a search engine, YouTube, website world right now, so let's rock and roll with it. I'm gonna give from my heart to you guys, if I can say anything truthful about this as well, from my heart to you guys, I'm going to be giving everything I have for free, everything. And if you want to somehow piece it all together, pull it all together, well, I did mention this interview. I have a new book coming out this next year, but also the first two that are already published. The Mr. America Shape Up series and Physique 101, they're already out in 12 countries around the world. They've been out for the past couple of years. They're very good books. The Physique 101 is probably my best writing up until this point, and they'll be able to get those through my website, MrAmericaHeart.com, this next week.
Yeah, someone actually just bought it last night when I put, I said, I'll be interviewing John Hart and this heavy-duty, high-intensity group in Facebook, and I said, yeah, I just looked it up. I just bought a book, which is cool, man. I went right on.
Right on. That's appreciated. No, you guys, that's really appreciated because really, it takes a lot to put together something like that. It's not just write any kind of crap down. Yeah, everybody could do it then.
It's actually a good book. I read it. It's actually last time my conversation, I told you you lit a fire in my ass. Now I just got done with a experiment, a Metcon experiment. Now I'm gonna go full blown heavy duty again. I'm walking around at when you saw me last year at your show, I was 172. I'm 203, 204 now. Doesn't look like it, but I am.
Yeah, you look good, Pat, and I know you'll do well, and I'm glad to hear it. Actually, like I said, I'm not going to cut down anybody else for what they're doing. If you ask me my opinion of some things that I think work or don't work, I'll give you my opinion. And if I got a funny story with it, I'll share that too. I have a whole bunch more in here. So when I come back again, if you have me back, it'll be fun. We'll come up with some decent subject matter on top of what we've already done. And I've been around. So I've been around over 32 years. I've been around. A lot of pro bodybuilders, a lot of people in the industry, a lot of people at Gold's Gym in Venice and World Gym in Venice and Santa Monica when it was in Santa Monica. And, a lot of fun stuff has happened. And so I'm enjoying training still. And it's my hope that all of you guys out there, guys and girls, that you gain something from some of the things that I teach, at least. That's really my purpose in doing this at this point. And, while I train clients in the gym, the main thing at this point is that I'd like to get my books out to just about anybody and everybody who will have them and take the time to read them. Man, there's a lot of pictures in there too. Yeah. So, you've read the books, then it's not just all verbiage, so it's easy to understand. It goes straight through with a lot of pictures and training routines and pictures of exercises. So especially that Physique 101, that's my favorite up to this point. That's my personal favorite. So, yeah.
All right, John. So thank you so much. So guys, there you go. All the questions. I tried to get in as much as I asked you a few more, but I'm running out of time here. But thank you so much, John, once again. So kind to do the show second time. Actually, there's so much. After that interview I had with, I don't know who it was. I think it was the guy Lawrence Neal, but the views from your interview just went from half, it doubled in half, which was awesome. I like that. I think people should look you up more. Really do. I mean, you have a lot to offer. That's why I'm. You lit a fire under my butt after the last interview. I've been pushing, very much so, I have a beautiful website coming out right now this week, and then I have those trainer tips I'm going to be coming out with, the quick 5-minute deals, 6-minute deals, okay, and on YouTube, and they're going to give a lot. I'm coming up with every subject I can think of, and, if any of your viewers, if they have any questions, they can go right to, the YouTube and or suggestions that they would, or requests to shoot, any videos answering any questions. More than happy to. They should. Material. It's all about having material, right? Yep. So I'm more than happy to do it, and I'm happy to interview with you guys, and it's been a great experience. I want to support you guys as well, and we help each other over the long term. It's no problem at all. There you guys have it. YouTube. Make sure you guys subscribe to John Hart's YouTube. You guys will learn a lot. All right.
All right.
John, God bless you. Thank you so much, buddy. I'll see you next. Hey, I'll see you next year.
It's coming. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
Take care, John.
All right, guys.
Bye.